Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the AHP Live Stage. We've got a really great session now about speaking up and raising concerns, which is obviously incredibly important for patients and staff and other team members alike. So I'm really looking forward to this session.
Oh, I'm so happy to see you all.
Hello there, everyone. Hello, thank you so much for joining us. Naomi, I believe you're leading this panel, is that right? Yes?
Yeah.
Perfect.
We all have different kind of perspectives and threads on speaking up and raising concerns. So we're really looking forward to sharing what our kind of experiences are and insights are with the audience today. So I'm really pleased that the AHP Live Stage has been going well. It's always a pleasure to be part of this programme.
Excellent. Yeah, we've been running for a few years now and keep getting bigger and better with each session, and really glad that we can kind of give this space for discussion of all the varied AHP careers. I do medicine, so it's actually been a really eye-opening hub for me to moderate. I feel like I've learned a lot just over there. We had our aspiring students focus yesterday, so we had a lot of sessions there and learning about the different careers. So I've really loved it as well.
We're all different professions here, so it'll be really exciting, I think, to understand kind of the impact that this has on our different professional groups, as we're all part of the AHP family. So I'm a lesser spotted therapeutic radiographer by trade, so one of the smaller professions, but one of the most risky areas of healthcare generally, large amounts of radiation to treat cancer. So an environment where safety and being able to speak up is really, really critical clinically. But Yogita, tell us more about your profession.
I work in physiotherapy, in MSK physiotherapy, which is obviously a really lovely profession. I work as an advanced practice physio. It's a great profession.
And Arnie, you're another physio as well, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. I'm another physiotherapist by background, but at the moment I work for Health Education England, looking at how we increase the diversity and inclusion of ethnic minorities. So part of my kind of speaking up background, I suppose, is advocating for minority ethnic groups, trying to improve inclusion, but also kind of having difficult conversations and raising my concerns within the meetings that I go to, where I'm often a minority as well.
Wow, that's amazing. Kitty?
Yeah, morning. I'm a diagnostic radiographer, but like you, Naomi, I started out my career as a therapy radiographer, and I did that for a year and then changed to diagnostic. I work clinically at the moment, just to keep my skills up and to touch base with people, because I think if I'm going to be sharing a platform with people about raising concerns, what I need to do is be out there with colleagues, allied health professionals, to see in practice, to bring that back into the work that I do. So I work as a named professional for safeguarding adults, which is quite unusual. One for an allied health profession to do that, and two for a diagnostic radiographer. So that brings its own positives and challenges, let's say.
Yeah, so my role in my organisation is that I'm a clinical lead for culture change and improvement. So I'm far away from the linear accelerators of radiotherapy, but actually I always am very passionate about the transferable skills that we as AHPs have, that we can move into these different areas. So the piece of work that I've been doing at the moment within that kind of patient safety role that I have has been really working with teams in our high risk areas, so within sort of theatres, invasive procedures, around how do we create that culture and climate where in the moment we can say something doesn't feel right here, or I'm really uncomfortable with that, and be able to be really accepting of that within our teams, and that to be seen as a real positive, because somebody's waving a flag that potentially some level of harm, either to a colleague or somebody in our care, might be done, and making that feel good and making that feel okay within our team. So all about that kind of safety climate within the teams, or the team of teams. I'm never convinced in healthcare that we don't work in a team at any point, because I class those in our care as part of our team. So So how do we work within that team and then that team of teams so that we can use our voices to be able to raise flags for safety? So I don't know where other speakers are, so I'm gonna crack on.
I think they're still being sorted out, so just go for it for now. And
I'm going to carry on talking to you because our time is. I want to get the most out of our time with this amazing group that we have here. So do you know, I'm going to start us off, guys, with thinking about our different perspectives and our different lenses that we have. How do we create those kind of moments? How do we... Oh, actually, let's go back a step further. What kind of things should we be speaking up about? What kind of things should we be talking about within our teams and in our healthcare communities? So look at these lovely speakers I'm going to put on the spot. Arnie, I'm going to come to you first, please, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose for me, speaking up is whenever you see any sort of injustice, and that could be anything from, so I suppose thinking about if you see someone who's being discriminated against, or you hear someone making a joke that actually is discriminatory or racist or prejudiced in any way. So anything that you see that's an injustice that you think that doesn't sound right, and often you get that feeling if you're like, that's not right. And I think it's really easy to be a bystander and just to kind of go, well, it's not about me. I don't want to interfere. I don't want to cause offence, so I won't say anything. But I think I heard this phrase this week about putting your brave pants on. And I kind of thought, yeah, do you know what? Speaking up is all about putting your brave pants on and kind of saying, you know, that doesn't sit right with me. And I think that also links to patient care, like you were saying, you know, if you see something that isn't right, if you think that there's something that isn't safe, or you're thinking, you know, or that person's operating on the wrong leg, which, you know, it happens, and people are too scared to speak up. So I think it's all about those brave pants.
You just reminded me that I heard a brilliant phrase from a colleague, which is your gutometer. So that feeling, and we know, well, in my world of human factors and safety, that's something's not right with your mental model or your values, beliefs. It's not going to sit quite comfortably. So your gutometer, I thought, was a great phrase. If that gutometer sparks something, that's just a moment to say, I'm uncomfortable and it doesn't feel right. So I love that. Kitty, let me come to you. I feel like Celebrity Square's on my side of the screen. Kitty, tell me about moments and experiences and situations where we should be speaking up.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, being a diagnostic radiographer, quite often people think that their role in safeguarding is very limited because it's all about once somebody has been subjected to harm, and then we might do some imaging to try and support any cases going forwards to try and alleviate the situation or reduce the risk. But actually there's a step before that, and it's about what is our role in identifying where harm might come to one of our patients or to one of our colleagues. You know, we was talking about people in positions of trust who exert power over people. So I think safeguarding actually in health is a massive area, and it links very well with human factors. It's all about patient safety, about reducing harm. And I think what's important is remembering that it can happen internally within organisations. So it might be that you see a patient who's not being treated properly. You know, there might be some discrimination, there might be physical harm, there might be, you know, the Mental Capacity Act might be not being applied correctly and the patient might be coming to harm. Or it might be externally, it might be a patient that's come through your service, for example, and disclosed something to you. That's quite rare that they disclose something to you. You actually need that spider sense to understand safeguarding a little bit more, to be able to pick up on the clues. You know, might be somebody who's been domestically abused, for example, who doesn't want to disclose, but by asking questions, you might then get some information from that person. So I think it's really important. And from my perspective, you know, working clinically as well, I've had experiences where people have disclosed domestic abuse to me on a mobile MRI scanner, and there was claustrophobic. You know, we all know patients who are claustrophobic for MRI scans, but there was actually more terrified of not having the scan because of the not because of the claustrophobia, but because of going back out to the partner in the waiting room and telling them that they've not had the scan performed. So it's about using your skills and knowledge around safeguarding to be able to say to people, you know, how can we support staff in recognising and responding to that, because quite often that is the challenge.
And that's a really interesting point, I think, from both yourself and Arnie, about that kind of early intervention in a way, that whatever we're doing, we're seeing that potential for harm, or we're reading the signals and being able to raise that flag to say something doesn't quite feel right here. And one of the key things we know about being able to raise concerns and why people disclose things is all about that approachability and that trust and rapport. And AHPs, like every other profession in healthcare, are in such a privileged position in that way. It's something that I think we're all really proud of how we get to enter people's lives and make a difference. So something I think would thread through all of our different careers and wider into healthcare. Yogi, let me come to you, Yogita, sorry. Talk to me about your experiences, moments that we should speak up from your perspective.
So obviously, just building on what Kitty and Arnie have already said, I've also got, you know, it's so definitely near misses and safeguarding issues, but also things like there can be data breaches or potential for data breaches or administrative problems or problems with the pathway. I think any time that you be an issue for another learner going forward, because it can be quite subtle and it can be at the other end of the scale, like Kitty has said as well. So if you feel that it would present an issue for another learner or a patient, you know, quality or safety issue, and could lead to that as well. And also with safeguarding as well, people may disclose things to you like political safety issues that you're not quite sure how to handle as well. So things like that do come up and do come through, and we have experience of that as well. So covers quite a span of things, and just wanted to say, Naomi, it's great to be on this session, really, because when we did our Health Education England survey last year, which surveyed learners and their experiences, student learners and their experience during wave 1 of the pandemic, we did find that there were a percentage of AHP students that didn't feel comfortable raising concerns or didn't know how to raise concerns and didn't feel supported as well. So it's a really, really, you know, great topic.
Oh, thanks, Yogita. I should just mention, because David has flown on in and joined us in Bethall Technology, so it's awesome to see you. I just wanted to recognise the role of Freedom to Speak Up Guardian. So Noma, I don't think is Bethall the technology, but she may pop up with us, which would be amazing. But most people will know from the Francis report and other findings that every NHS organisation has a Freedom to Speak Up Guardian linked to the National Guardian's Office. So if you're in those environments, there is always somebody in that organisation who is specifically trained and is looking for you and looking to support you in being able to get your voice heard, but also the action comes from it. And I think that's a really powerful role in speaking up. And I just wanted to flag it there. And Noma can share more about it when she joins us. So David, I'm going to sweep in and bring you in if I can. Just tell us a little bit about your connection to speaking up, please.
Yes, so my name is David Bethall. I'm a newly qualified operating department practitioner. I've got a real passion about encouraging people to speak up, and particularly students, because I think if you can learn what it takes to speak up and how, you know, and learn how to be able to speak up, you know, people can take that experience and that confidence and transition that along with themselves into being qualified members of whatever team you may be working part of. And I think it's an incredible, and I think it is a skill to be able to hone whilst you're a student. You know, I've as a student and as a newly qualified ODP, where I've had to speak up because there's something that I was either unsure of or something that I felt that needed to be raised with the team that hadn't been disclosed, should I say, apologies. So I'm happy to join this conversation today and share some of my experiences or even some of my tips that I think might be helpful for people.
Oh, awesome, thank you. I think students and newly qualified members of staff are an absolute gift, because your colleagues come with such a fresh pair of eyes, having worked in a number of different centres often, and they come with that curiosity and challenge, which I think can sometimes be undervalued, and it is about making sure that those voices get heard. I think I remember as well, I don't know if this is true for you, but I'll just share my experience of when you're newly qualified. So, I mean, I qualified a long time ago, but I remember feeling competent, but not confident. So I knew the stuff, but actually applying it without my supervisor or someone over my shoulder, and just those reins loosening a little bit more than they'd done in year 3 when I was raring to go. So I remember those moments. I don't know if anyone else remembers those first few months of clinical practice.
I think I felt incompetent and I'm not confident. I think I felt. I just thought, what am I doing? How have they let me loose? If I'm completely honest with you, but then you kind of realise, actually, no, I am qualified. I must know what I'm doing. I think it's issues of confidence definitely then underplay how competent you feel. But I completely agree that as a student or as a newly qualified member of staff, you've got a fresh pair of eyes, but sometimes you don't have those connections to be able to speak up confidently. And you sometimes don't know where to go, and you're worried about, if I do speak up, how's that going to affect me as a student? How's it going to affect my grades and the rest of my placement? And then as a newly qualified, you're like, well, is that going to stop me getting my next rotation choice, or what's going to happen if I kind of speak up? So I think there's a lot of fear as well associated with it.
I would echo that. Sorry, I would echo that. I mean, currently I'm studying a PhD looking at allied health professionals, education around safeguarding, undergraduate level, because what I've recognised and throughout my career is that there's very little education for students around safeguarding, around speaking up, around how we do that, how it's integral to everything that we actually do right from day dot. And I think from my experience, safeguarding is one of those subject areas that only seems to become more apparent once you're qualified. But once you're qualified, you are responsible, because you're a registered healthcare professional, for the care of that person. You need to have those skills, and I personally think that we're missing a trick. We should build that into undergraduate degrees and let students know that actually they are important. I've also lectured at second-year radiography students who have told me about concerns that they've got, and that they've spoken to their radiography colleagues who didn't really know what to do with that information. So I think there's something important about skilling up the students that we've got coming through that are going to be our next generation, but also working with people who are already qualified to let them know that they have got a role and responsibility in speaking up and raising concerns. And I echo what Yogita said, it's really great being here to talk about this, because it's something that actually could impact all of us at any point, from being a patient, being on the receiving end of it, or being a professional.
I think there's something you've all just touched on there, which is fantastic, which is, who do we talk to? Who do we take our concerns to? Who can support us in not only listening to those, but taking action from them? And you also touched on there about that fear of retribution. So we know that that's a barrier to safety within our work. Sometimes that fear that if we do speak up, we're maybe made to feel silly, or it becomes kind of a black mark. I know from my own experience of having spoken up and so on, that's actually never ever happened to me. I think I've been really, really fortunate. So I've mentioned the Freedom to Speak Up Guardian as somebody within NHS organisations, and as part of the National Guardian's Office, as someone that everybody can speak up to. Yogita, how can people think about who to speak up to, and who would provide them with that sort of safe space and psychological safety?
So I think it has to be somebody you trust, first of all, doesn't it? So you've got a good relationship. And I think it could be a variety of people. So it could be your educator. It could be a peer. It could be a colleague. It could be, if you have a buddy, it could be a buddy that you speak to. It could be somebody in your practice placement team at the university, course leader. So I think there's quite a variety of people. But when we do speak up and you you go into that safe space, if you don't get the answer that you need, I think it's important to then go to the next person or try and escalate it. So that's really important, isn't it, really? Is that if you still don't feel that what's been done is right, that you continue on that road to make really.
But I'll just come in with that, Yogita. So I think it's really important that you have that safe space and you have those relationships where you can really trust somebody. So it doesn't have to be someone that's more senior than you. But like you said, a buddy or a peer, just be able to say, look, I feel uncomfortable about the situation, and talking it through with someone. And often sharing it then can make you feel more confident when two of you then go to the next person to say, we've discussed this doesn't sit right with both of us. And it's almost like safety in numbers, I suppose.
So we were talking about how do we find those people? How do we find those people that are safe to speak up to within our different areas? I touched on a bit earlier in the conversation, it's often about rapport. So for those of us that are on the call that are, actually for everybody, for all of us, how approachable are you? How easy is it to come and tell what's not working well, but also what is working well? What's the stuff that we need to be able to do more of? What's the great stuff, the conversations that we're having that are really, really powerful within that? Also thinking about within our teams, sometimes how do we set the tone to be able to speak up? So I mentioned we're teams, but we're also a team of teams, aren't we? We all work together in some different way. So how do we do that within our teams? Do we have briefings, huddles, other things that would be able to set that tone? So for my world in patient safety, you know, what if we started the day by saying, do you know, we're all human and we can all make mistakes. And if you see something that doesn't quite feel right, tell me about it. Let's talk to each other about it. That would really set the tone, wouldn't it? And open up an opportunity to be able to have these conversations in our different environments. And hopefully, if that was me talking to you, it would make me feel more approachable to you, and perhaps somebody you can come and speak up to. And in speaking up, one of the really interesting things is that it isn't always about speaking to power. It is, as Yogita was talking about, finding that person, that colleague, that peer who you can share your concerns with. And we know that once that happens, you will start to feel better yourself, having been able to have that conversation. But actually, now you're a team taking on these actions and being able to speak up. Please jump in and talk about how we make it business as usual to be able to speak up and be able to raise concerns with each other. It is about talking about the good stuff as well. So the things that are going really, really well within our environments, because we want to do more of that good stuff.
Just going on what we were talking about earlier about raising concerns, I think it's really important from a safeguarding perspective that we remember about confidentiality, and that with specific concerns, it's probably not appropriate to talk to your friend, your colleague, your buddy about specific concerns. You do need to direct those concerns to the most appropriate people, and in NHS organisations, you are the safeguarding lead, safeguarding department. As students, it would be wise to discuss that with your supervisor, somebody who's supporting you to say that you've got some concerns. However, it is necessary to go on and raise those concerns with the safeguarding team. And I think that's probably one of the fundamental flaws in a lot of the education that people do get, online training, for example, and they don't tell people who is available to them and who to raise concerns with. So I think it's really important as students to find out who those people are. In each NHS trust, there will be a safeguarding team. There'll be somebody that looks after safeguarding adults, safeguarding children, the Mental Capacity Act, Prevent. So there'll always be somebody, and anybody can go and speak to those people. If you don't feel that you're able to do that, there's also the local authority, which is the responsible organisation, particularly for safeguarding adults, where you can raise your concerns, and the same for safeguarding children. So just go out there and explore a little bit about how you can raise those concerns. And each organisation will have a policy and a standard operating procedure and how to do that. And again, if you're an undergraduate student and you don't feel that you're being listened to, you can also speak to your educator and let them know the concerns that you've got.
Thank you, Kitty. And okay, did you want to add anything to that, David?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's interesting to get people's different experiences about creating the right environment in theatres. We have a lot of safety checks that are done before different stages as part of a patient's theatre journey. It's called the 5 steps to safer surgery. So that's 5 moments throughout that patient's journey where the team get together and check particular pieces of information, whether it's regarding to the patient, whether it's... And each one of those stops that we have, those pauses in that process, is an opportunity for somebody, or anybody should I say, to speak up or ask any questions that they're not sure about or concerns. And it's something that creates the right environment for that process to take place, and that process being somebody to be able to say something that they would like to either get cleared or or raise a concern as it is. So all about creating the right environment where people don't feel like they can't raise concern, and that is irrespective of your role in the team. Theatres, it's a multidisciplinary environment. ODPs, anaesthetists, surgeons, nurses, radiographers, physiotherapists. There's a multitude of different professions that work in theatres, and it's important that every single person in that operating room, and equally as important students, has that opportunity to speak up. So fundamentally for me, it's all about creating that right environment, identifying, as Kitty said, those people that if there's something there that you don't feel like you can speak up about, then go and approach those people that are named. By creating the right environment, people shouldn't feel like they can't speak up, because in my experience, nobody's going to ever criticise somebody for speaking up, whether it's correctly or incorrectly. I'm unsure about if that is relating to patient safety or anything that's relating to the job in hand. So I think people need to be reassured by that as much as there is a fear of saying the wrong thing or retribution, in my personal experience, and I'm probably can share this with a lot of other people, that nobody's ever going to criticise somebody for speaking up. It's in everybody's interest that conversation can take place.
Yeah, I'd just like to really echo that, David, because that's exactly the same as my experience. I've been qualified about 15 years now, and actually when I had concerns as a junior therapist and I raised them, and I was a bit worried about going to the safeguarding lead, because I thought, well, he seems like really senior and really powerful, and what if I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, and what if I'm completely wrong? And I remember my senior supervisor saying to me, no, like, it's okay, like, you need to just do this, and he's not scary, and this is his job, and you can phone him. And it was just that confidence to kind of be told it's okay to do it. And then as soon as I spoke to him, I was like, he's a really nice guy. I discussed my concerns. We kind of talked about the different avenues we could go down. And I suppose it's just breaking down that barrier where you think, am I making a fuss, or is this really serious? And I suppose if you're wondering that question, you just ask the lead, like Kitty was saying, because that's their job, and they're all so nice. Like, they're all these lovely people doing that job. So, and they're so expert in their field. So I really want to just echo that, like, it's okay to go to people in seniority with your concerns, and it then can have a really positive impact.
And I would say, from a safeguarding perspective, I've been in safeguarding roles in acute trusts and all over the place. And actually, I don't see myself as being in a senior role. I see myself as being integral to keeping people safe. And I love it when people come and just ask me questions, want to know a little bit more, are inquisitive, that professional curiosity. Is this right or isn't it? Because we're all in different stages of our career. We've all got different experiences. And for some, You know, the age-old saying is no question's a daft question, you know, and that's right. You know, we've got different experiences, and we can put sometimes a different lens on that, and help direct. And I think the importance with safeguarding is it's not a punitive approach. People often see it as being something that's detrimental to the individual, to the patient, when actually it's about reducing risk. It's about safeguarding. It's about keeping people safe. It's about keeping you as a member of staff safe. It's about keeping your organisation safe. It's about keeping the system safe. So it's much more than those you know, those little niggles, as Naomi mentioned earlier, that gut feeling. We have to go with gut feeling, and sometimes, you know, it's right, sometimes it's wrong. But does it matter if we're trying and doing that with the best intentions on patient safety?
Definitely. And I think as a team as well, and as clinicians and managers, as we go through our profession, we've got to be responsible for being that role model as well, haven't we? So we learn as we go along. As you raise more concerns, you learn, and then you know where you need to go next time and how to support people. But you become better at encouraging people to talk about it, whether, you know, as David was saying, it's quite a complex environment, isn't it? In theatres with lots of multi-professional learners, lots of different learners there and qualified staff. And for some areas, it may be a little bit easier, making sure that you eke that time out in your day or in your week where people can do that. So it doesn't particularly have to be your one-to-ones or your PDRs, you know, so it's really important. And I felt that as I've gone on more and raised concerns and got more confident with it as well and found out where I need to go, I've been better at encouraging other people to raise concerns as well. So I think that's a really big chunk of it as well.
Fantastic, guys. Apologies, I had a few tech issues, so I dipped out and then I've dipped back again, but hopefully you can all hear and see me okay. The joy of technology at the moment, isn't it? So I hope that you've been talking about how we make speaking up business as usual. And before I dipped off, I was trying to talk to you about how we create that climate within teams. And I think that's, I hope that's what you've kind of been touching on, and how that works really well. Noma's also wanting to raise, she's having tech issues as well, around looking at the National Guardians Office for the Speaking to Speak Up Guardians in your organisations as well. So making speaking up feeling business as usual. So we've got about 10 minutes left of our conversation. And what I'd really like to do is just take a minute, because we talk about speaking up and speaking up after with raising concerns, which is when there's a problem. But also, what are our opportunities to speak up and say what's going really, really well? So if we think about like getting in early, talking to each other, that was really good. How can we do more of that good stuff? What's your experiences been around that, guys? About how we create that climate for the good stuff too.
From my experience, Naomi, in my role, I'm involved in a lot of domestic homicide reviews, where where somebody has died or died by suicide as a result of domestic abuse. We have some learning, and we do the same for safeguarding children and adults. You know, it's not about apportioning blame, it's about learning lessons, and some of those lessons we identify as good practice. And quite often that good practice is recognising early, responding and communicating and documenting, you know, all those things that seem really, really basic, but when you go back through the journey of somebody's life and look at how they've travelled through our system, our healthcare systems, and the opportunities that people might have had to be a little bit more inquisitive, or where they could have documented something that if somebody else then reads that record, they might have had a better indicator of what was happening and could have responded. You know, all these opportunities like David mentioned earlier. There are lots of you know, good practice out there, but unfortunately I think when we're in the environment what we're in, we very rarely celebrate that good practice, and and it's because of the, I suppose, the consequences on that individual that it feels a little bit inappropriate to celebrate good practice when harm might have come to somebody, you know, whether that be physical, emotional harm. So
we do need to recognise that good stuff, don't we, though? Because that's what will prevent things happening again, and that's the real, you know, that's what raising concerns all about. David, how do we celebrate the good stuff within your environment?
So at the end of each operating session, we have a debrief, a team debrief, which is part of the 5 steps to safer surgery, and that's an opportunity to discuss what went well and what could have been done better or even differently, and that's fed back, and then throughout the department, you know, whatever is identified, what went well or what didn't go so well, that's shared then so that we can continually learn, and it's all about improving that quality, and that should be everybody's goal, to continually improve the service that you're providing for the patients. You know, and if everyone can have that same mindset, everybody's part of that team, part of the wider department and part of the wider service, then all the things that we've been talking about become easier, and it just becomes more normalised. And, you know, you don't have to fear that you're going to, you know, speak up and say something that might be uncomfortable to discuss, for example, or feel awkward about speaking up, and it just becomes part of the normal conversation that you're having as part of those teams. So I'd just reiterate what I said previously. It's about nurturing those right environments, and no matter how senior or junior you are, and that is in terms of experience and not in terms of role. You know, everybody's got that part to play, and everybody can influence that environment that they're working in, and it's all about nurturing those coming through as well. So, you know, I'm a newly qualified ODP now, and, you know, I'm trying to emphasise these key points to students coming through so that when they make that transition, it becomes a lot easier for them. And that confidence thing that was lacking, that, you know, some of the colleagues on the call have alluded to, you know, hopefully those things can not become more of an issue in the future.
So panel, I'm going to put you all on a bit of a spot at the moment, and I'm going to ask you for your golden nuggets, please. What would be your takeaways in these last few minutes for speaking up, raising concerns, and all about that learning and improvement that can happen by doing that? So, Arnie, I'm going to come to you first, please, for your takeaway golden nuggets, most important thing to get across today.
I think the most important thing is about building those relationships and getting to really know people, and actually being really curious about individuals, regardless about race or ethnicity, which is the main area that I'm working in. So trying to really understand people so that when they do have concerns, they're able to express those without fear of repercussions, because they actually know them on a personal level. And I think that helps to build trust. And so the second thing, I'm going to have to stick it in with 2 nuggets, is about being brave, and about actually putting yourself out there and not just being a bystander, but actually really actively trying to advocate for other people.
Thank you. Yogita.
So mine would be building on what Arnie says. He's really see it as a rich thing, you know, particularly with patients and their lived experiences, so that see that as that's going to enrich your quality and how you're going to change things in your profession and your learning as well going forward, and what you do for the patient. And I think the other thing is be a good role model as well. So you don't need to have all the answers, but you just need to support staff to know that you will do your best and get them to the right people that need to be able to support them. So I think the role model is crucial, really.
Thank you. Kitty?
Yeah, I would say, you know, it's not your role to investigate or to have evidence of a concern. If you've got that niggly feeling, you know, safeguarding is everybody's responsibility, and by raising concerns, you will absolutely make a difference.
Thank you. David?
The biggest takeaway from me is if you feel like you need to say something, say it with the confidence that nobody's going to criticise you for raising whatever you've got to say. And if you're that person in the environment that is listening to somebody's concerns, you know, congratulate them, if that's the right word, on doing that, and that will help instill confidence, and it will help start to nurture that environment.
Thank you. I've just got a couple of things I wanted to share from my perspective. One is a tool which I really advocate for being able to speak up, and something that I've personally found helpful. So it's called the CUS tool. I didn't invent it. I think it came from America. It's a pinch with pride. So the C is I am concerned, I'm concerned, and then what you're concerned about. And then the U of the CUS, so it's C and then U is I'm uncomfortable. So you're just raising that flag a little bit more when you're saying that something doesn't quite feel right. And you don't have to have the answers. You just need to be saying it doesn't feel right. And the S is safety, or sometimes it's stop. So I feel this is a safety issue. This is a safety issue. I feel we should stop. CUS, C-U-S. And what I really like about it, and I think we've all kind of touched on it in different ways, is the I. So nobody can tell you how you feel. That's how you feel. And your perspective is your reality. Nobody can tell you that. So you're not saying something's right or wrong. You're not making a judgment on anything. You're just saying, this is how I feel. And it doesn't feel right to me. And I want to tell you about it. So the CUS tool is really, really good. And one more I wanted to share with you. The second thing I wanted to share with you is a bit what everybody has touched on again about that role modelling, how we create that space, and so on. We all have a responsibility to do the best that we can for quality and safety within our different environments and look after anybody within it, whether it's our colleagues or those in our care. So it's all about how we show up and how we create those opportunities ourselves. Just have that informal coffee conversation, or maybe it's in a more of a team environment. So my second takeaway would be, think about how you show up and think about how you create that environment where somebody can say to you something's working well or not working well, and how you want to make changes together. So I snuck in too as well. I think our session is coming to a close, so I just wanted to say a huge thank you to every single member of this panel. I think we have all battled a little bit of technology behind the background, but they have been calm and professional and awesome in joining this session today. Noma, who couldn't quite join us in as much as she wanted to. As I've mentioned, Freedom to Speak Up Guardians, National Guardians Office, and we'll be sharing a bit more on that, I think, through the further sessions. So is there anything else from us, our lovely host team?
Yeah, so thanks again, guys. Really appreciated that discussion. I think it's such an important topic. And for all our attendees, thank you for tuning in as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.